My next source is retired four-star Admiral William McRaven. He is the former commander of the U.S. Special Operations Command who oversaw the raid that killed Osama bin Laden. And he has written a new book called Conquering Crisis, 10 Lessons to Learn Before You Need Them. And it's great to have you here. Given this book focuses on leadership in difficult times and what's important in those moments, I wonder what your assessment is of what's playing out right now at the Pentagon.
First, Caitlin, thanks for having me on. And let me start by saying, look, I want Secretary Hegseth to be successful. Every American should want the Secretary of Defense to be successful. But as you've just talked about, I don't think he's surrounded himself with the right people. In my book, Conquering Crisis, I talk about how crisis leadership is fundamentally different than day-to-day leadership. Crisis leadership, you have time constraints, you have resource constraints, people's lives are at risk, reputations are at risk, and everybody's watching. Well, that's the situation that Pete Hegseth is in. And I have a chapter in the book called The Council of Colonels. And in the military, we have a council of colonels for most generals and admirals. And those are generally colonels that are unpromotable. And they are unpromotable so that they will give the general or the admiral the unvarnished truth. And so if I was advising Secretary Hegseth, I would say, find and bring people around you that will tell you the truth, that will ensure that you don't walk into a minefield. Trust the men and women in uniform. You've got Dan Kane. General Dan Kane is the new chairman of the Joint Chiefs. Dan is a superb officer, as was C.Q. Brown. And Dan will give Secretary Hegseth his very best military advice. Count on those people. Rely on those people. Listen to those people. Have a little humility in the job. You're going to need it.
Yeah, and you've emphasized the importance of facing a crisis head on when it comes to you and how you respond in that moment and what that looks like. And I saw that you'd said that if you don't, it could deteriorate the situation even further. Do you think that is something that's happening right now, whether it's from the way the Pentagon is handling this or the White House in terms of just addressing it head on?
Yeah, absolutely. At the end of the day, the truth always comes out. So every leader, when they're in a crisis, particularly when a crisis may be of your own making, you need to confront it head on. You need to be honest. You need to be honest with the rank and file. You need to be honest with your bosses. And the quicker that you come forward with the truth, the quicker you're going to identify what the problems are and begin to solve them. And you have to have a little swagger. You have to have a little confidence. But once again, you better have a little humility going into a job like this, because if you don't, it's going to humble you pretty quickly.
Yeah, and on page 84 of your book, you write, and I want to quote now from it, you say, use truth and transparency through the crisis to show that you understand the problem and that you're taking concrete steps to resolve the issue. It may be uncomfortable, demoralizing, and personally embarrassing, but deception and opaqueness are a whole lot worse. One thing in terms of how this is being handled is they haven't seemed to really acknowledge using a platform like Signal to share information. They argue it's not classified. We've heard other people say attack plans are classified. I just wonder what you mean and what you see in terms of how that's been handled.
Yeah, it has not been handled well. I mean, we got to be honest about this. Clearly, the information that was broadcast on Signal was classified. Now, they weren't war plans, and I think this is a little bit of the nuance of the wording, is Secretary Hegseth has said we haven't divulged war plans. Well, war plans in a military context, as you know, Caitlin, this is the plan to invade Iraq or something broad and strategic like that. But make no mistake about it, these were operational plans with operational details. They were classified. But you'll also recognize that there was not a single uniformed person on any of those Signal chats, because I have no doubt that had there been a military officer on those chats, they would have said, Mr. Secretary, it's a bad idea using this. We need to go to our secure network to be able to talk. Back again to my point about the Council of Colonels. Secretary Hegseth, surround yourself with people that, yes, you can trust, but people that will tell you the truth. And then you as the Secretary, you as the leader of this remarkable organization, get out there, tell the truth, accept responsibility so you can get past this crisis. If you don't do that, it's going to drag on for a long time.
Two things you said there really stood out to me. One, you say you have no doubt that even if it's not war plans, as you say, that this information was classified in your view.
Of course. I mean, there's really no doubt about that. You're talking about operational details prior to an attack. And when you do that, it's classified. Now, it's timely. Once the strike is over, then the details kind of fade to the back. But there's no doubt in any military mind that those are classified details. Had I released details like that when I was on active duty on an unclassified platform like Signal, it would have been a violation of security. And my only point is, you made a mistake. That's okay. You're going to make mistakes. You're new in the job. You're going to make mistakes. Hold yourself accountable. You're telling all the rank and file, you're telling the soldiers, sailors, and Marines that you're going to hold them accountable, and you want to hold people accountable. Well, hold yourself accountable first. That's the first step to being a good leader.
Yeah, I mean, and no one would know better than you if it was classified. The other thing is you mentioned that no member of the military was on that chat.
Right.
The same information we're told essentially was conveyed on that chat as the other one, which we all could read because Jeffrey Goldberg was on it and published it. We're told on this one it included the Defense Secretary's wife, his brother who works at the Pentagon, and his personal attorney, though neither of them are in jobs that would typically be involved in making military plans. What do you make of the fact that they were on it and no member of the military was?
Well, of course, I haven't seen the Signal narrative, but once again, is it inappropriate to do that? Of course it is. And again, if I were Secretary Hegseth, I would say, you know what? I'm new in the job. I'm learning my way. This was an egregious mistake and a mistake I won't make again. And here's what I'm going to do to fix it. And I own up to it. And now let's move on to going after the Houthis and taking on the Chinese in the Indo-Pacific, things that he thinks are truly important. But if he doesn't hold himself accountable, then it's going to be hard when you're running the Department of Defense to expect the rank and file to hold other soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines accountable as well.
How do other militaries, other nations, other officials, how do they watch something like this as it's playing out? And also, I think importantly, as you know, how it's being handled.
Well, of course, every military is watching the United States writ large. I mean, my concern right now is we have this tone as Americans that we are transactional. I was at the Munich Security Conference, and the word that was bounced around the most was America has become transactional. Well, if we are transactional, if all we're doing is trying to get the best deal, that's not who we are as Americans. The fact of the matter is, we have values. Our values are important. We're a democracy. We're a republic. We believe in the rule of law. We believe in the Constitution and human rights. And this is what should shape our foreign policy. This is what should shape our defense policy. If all we're going to be is transactional, it's going to be a little hard to ask the great soldiers and the civil servants in the military to continue to sacrifice, to continue to do the hard work, to potentially put their lives on the line so we can get a better deal out of it. If you're talking about upholding a democracy in Ukraine or upholding a democracy in Taiwan or wherever aligned values are, that's the message. That's what's important. That's why soldiers go to war, is to protect the American values. But if we're no longer a value-based country, then again, the world is watching, and we need to underpin everything we do with the values that make us Americans.
On that front, as you know, the president wants to get a deal, a peace deal in Ukraine, wants to end the war there. But we've heard officials in recent days warn that if they don't see real progress over the next few days, they may walk away from the negotiating table altogether, U.S. officials. I wonder what you make of that, and also just how this process has played out in terms of the back and forth with Russia and Ukraine and the United States.
Yeah, well, I'm strongly in support of Ukraine. I was out there about 18 months ago, and you can't help but be inspired by the Ukrainian people and how they have, upheld, again, the Western values that, now they're not perfect. Let's be honest. I mean, Ukraine is a struggling democracy, but they are a democracy. And President Zelensky was elected the president of Ukraine. We need to stand behind them. We need to continue to support them against a dictator that is Vladimir Putin. So I thought, what happened in the Oval Office was egregious. At the end of the day, if you have differences with a head of state, Zelensky or anyone, you don't want to air those differences in public, certainly not in the Oval Office. What you need to do is, put a public face on it, and then, behind closed doors, have a hard discussion with Zelensky or others. But in terms of the negotiations going forward, again, we need to continue to back and support Zelensky in Ukraine as long as we can in hopes that we will end the carnage. And I give the president credit. I think he sincerely wants to end the fighting in Ukraine, as does, I think certainly the Ukrainians do, and I would expect the Russians do as well. So find a way to bring that to an end game. But the end game can't be we're going to give Russia everything they want and Ukraine nothing. And the end game, in my opinion, can't be just a bargaining deal with Ukraine on the rare earth minerals, and we're only going to protect them if we, again, have this transactional relationship.
Admiral McRaven, I really appreciate you coming on. It's great to have you. And just a reminder for everyone, your new book is Conquering Crisis, 10 Lessons to Learn Before You Need Them. Thank you so much, Admiral. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Caitlin.